clearly evident because of his good character, the change that he brought about to the world. Correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
That's part of it.
Let me go and move on to question number 2. The Muslim religion teaches that the previous message of God, namely the Torah and the Bible, were corrupted. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
How do we know that the Quran was not corrupted? Before we answer that, I want to explain why. Because there are passages in both the Torah, or as Christians call it, the Old Testament, and also the New Testament, in which God promised that His words would remain forever. So my question is, God either not tell truth when He told this to the Jews, when He told this to the Gentiles, or did He simply lack the ability to keep His word becoming corrupted? And so therefore, God now have the ability to keep the Quran from becoming corrupted?
It's a two-part question. In the older text, the Torah, the Tanakh, the Testament, yes, we do believe that those corrupted. To an extent, their underlying message is still there, but much of the text has been basically corrupted over time. Now, the Quran, on the other hand, has not. The Quran was preserved, especially through oral traditions, and many people may not believe that oral traditions are very what's the word I'm looking for? Are very good at keeping something alive, but that's not the case, especially in Arabia. It's much easier to corrupt something, at least for them, through writing. And what eventually happened, yes, is the Quran was later written down. However, it was then verified by those who carried the oral tradition before it. So there was never any room for, we call them hafiz, by the way. People who memorize the entire Quran, we call them hafiz. And there was a story, I believe, I can't remember exactly what the reference was, but one day somebody was burning, I don't remember if it was Empire or whatever, but somebody was burning all these Qur'an, these written versions, and the general military leader looked around and basically said, okay, well, I've gotten rid of your message, so what are you going to do now? You don't have your religion anymore. And an older man brought his son forward, this young boy, 7 years old, and the man said, no, we do. And the young boy could recite the entire Quran, word for word, through his mouth, and the other people started joining in. They knew it by heart. Mm-hmm. So, in that sense, no, I don't think the Quran can be corrupted. It has been promised to be preserved, and has been. Whether this is a self-fulfilling prophecy or not, I really can't answer.
Okay.
But
let me ask you if I understand the history of the Quran correctly, and let me go ahead and get this out, and then you correct me if it needs to be done. Now, Allah sent Gabriel the angel to Muhammad over the course of 22 years to deliver the message of the Quran. And of course, Muhammad, of course, was illiterate and was not able to write it down, but he memorized it. And then, of course, he told it to others, who, of course, then memorized the Quran. For the most part, the Quran was never written down during the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad. There were, a few scraps here and there where people wrote down a few things, but basically it was only after Muhammad's death that someone said, hey, let's write this stuff down. And what they did is they got together, because there were like a few fragments where people wrote down a few things here, a few things there, and what they did is they verified them with a couple of witnesses who took a look at it and said, yep, Muhammad said this. It's like, yep, Muhammad did not say that, so they put that one away. And over a course of, I think, like 22 years, they compiled the finished final version of the Quran, but primarily it was written, it was written after Muhammad died. And it was based primarily off of the memories and the abilities of people to remember second-hand information from Gabriel. Is any of that incorrect?
I think I'm going to clarify a little bit on that.
Okay.
The only time that it was actually people started to decide to write it down, there was actually a lot of fear within the Muslim community to write it down because of all the corruption that had occurred before in previous scriptures. Now,
they chose to not write it down to prevent corruption?
that was their main concern at first. Now, what later happened, at least from my understanding, now what later happened was that I believe the fourth righteous caliph Ali, he did have his own Quran, and some people also had their own Qurans. They did write it down to a point, and they had their own chronological order. And however, Uthman, the third righteous caliph, he was the one who wanted to basically bring it all together into one written codex, so one that everybody could read. And what had happened is that he basically said, okay, well, let's get rid of all the other ones, and we're going to come together, and all the Hafiz, basically all the people who have memorized the Quran, we're going to verify that this is what's going on, or this is what the message states. Make sure we don't put anything in there that's not in there. And then we're going to compile it into one codex, and that's basically what happened. Of course, I'm giving you the light version, but yeah, that's basically what happened. So to an extent, you were correct. I just wanted to put some more details.
Okay. But basically, the Quran that was compiled is basically a consensus of people's memories of what Muhammad said. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. My question is, although you were able to, because I have seen people, memorize, so I do know that it's possible to memorize the entire Quran, because I've seen it done. My question is, even with memories, it's not, to me, it's not 100% foolproof, because you might remember one word slightly different, perhaps. It's just like, if you've ever seen these people on American Idol, singing the songs they know and love, but they forget a line. So, even when you had people, corroborating together, it's like, did Muhammad say this? Did Muhammad say that? You've got the whole thing of, Chinese telephone game going on. Is it possible that, number one, Muhammad himself did not memorize everything correctly that Gabriel told him? And then, is it possible that over the course of the 22 years when the Quran was being, preached to here, there, and everywhere, that perhaps maybe, one person forgot a line, another person forgot a line, and basically it's just a consensus of what people agreed that Muhammad said?
In regards to, first off, the first thing, people's memories being distorted over time, I also seen some comments in the chat in regards to that. People have to remember that we're living in a written age. We don't have to use our memories that much. We can write things down. So we have to understand that back then they didn't really do that much. The Arabs were very well known for their poetry and their ability to memorize this poetry very easily. I'll tell you right now, when a young boy, a Hafiz, especially in this time, learns to read the entire Quran and memorizes it, there are times when people will be up there praying, because during our salah, during our prayers, we have to recite parts of the Quran, and if somebody messes up, that young boy, I guarantee you, will correct them from the back of the row. And it's actually kind of funny, especially when you see a young child doing that to an older gentleman.
Do you have a copy of the Quran handy that you could show up to the camera?
Yeah, sure. I have the Halim, MAS Abdel Halim version.
Okay. How many pages is that?
Oh, this one?
Yes.
This one's, wow, 446 pages.
If you were to start reading it right now, front to cover, with no breaks, how long do you think it would take you to read that? Would you be able to do it in 2 days?
2 or 3 days.
2 or 3 days. My question is there even the possibility that people could have misremembered? My thing is, I know memories are great, I've seen it done, but is there even the possibility? Because like I said, God promised that the Torah would never be corrupted. But you say it is. God promised the Bible, the New Testament, would never be corrupted. Yet somehow it is.